Recently, I've been watching a lot of Elden Ring streams by Slimesicle. Thing is, whenever he dies twice and loses like 40,000 runes, I get more annoyed and sad than he does. So I thought, what if I made a hotkey that lets me hide a part of my screen in mere moments? So you can just hide the spot where runes are shown. So I simply wouldn't know how many runes he has. And I did that. As you can see, I just hidden a part of code that I'm going to show off right now. First of all, there are 3 hotkeys and 3 possible ways to use this function. So when I click with my mouse while holding the Windows button, first in the first corner and then in a different corner. There's now a GUI from the top left to the bottom right. However, it's kind of hard to see where it actually ends, right? So let's pick a different color. I'll take this blue. Now do it again. Boom. Amazing. Then, by clicking on it, we can actually move it. So there's no title window. It's just there by itself, yet we can still easily move it, which is really nice. And then you might say, well, how do I close it? There's no X button. It's simple, you double click it. Boom. That's how you do it. And now the usual color that I want to use is this one. It's a blackish color that I use for pretty much every single of my GUIs. So I have a hotkey that sets that color. I press Windows F, and now the next time I do, here it is, that black color. Perfect. Now let's get through the code. First of all, there are 2 chord modes to make sure that we're grabbing the right things, even if you changed chord mode to something else in your script. This is the section that lets us have 3 possible ways to use this function. If we don't pass anything, then we just create the GUI. Pretty simple. If we specify a false value, so either false, an empty string, an empty array I think also works, 0, stuff like that, maybe there's something else, then that picks a color. Boom. And then if we specify a true value, that now becomes the color. So you can have hotkeys for multiple colors that you like to use most. Or for example, if you made your own runner, you could set a command something like color red, and then that changes to whatever red you specified in calling this function. Pretty nice. So first of all, if we set this parameter at all, then everything else is not going to be done. No GUI is going to be created, no clicks will be recorded, so on. If we passed a false value, we get the color that is under the cursor. But if we set a true value, we set the color to what we've set the parameter to. Pretty simple. And because color is static, that stays for as long as your script is running. But even if you don't pick a color before the first time you run this function, there still will be a color. Nothing will break. It will actually be the default black color, which you can change. and I'll later show you where. But if we didn't set this parameter at all, if there are nothing in the brackets, then we do the actual meat of this function. The first time we call it, we get the first corner, and then return. So the first time we run the function, this is the only thing that we need to do. So the first time we call it, it is indeed the first call, and if it's true, it will be. We get the mouse position and get the x and y values of the first corner. And then it's not the first call anymore. Now we're calling the function a second time. This is where the meat is. I've said that a couple of times already, but I'm sure you can see the meat already. So the second time, we get the other corner through mouse get position and calculate a bunch of stuff. Let me explain it visually. So I wonder if I can. Perfect. I'll draw stuff and such. I guess I can't. I guess I won't. So say the first call of the function, we get the top left corner. And the second time we do, we can only get the bottom right. It's just how it works. So it's either first call, second call, or second call, first call, or wait, no. So 1, 2, or 1, 2, or 1, 2, 1, 2. We can't set the top left and then the top right, because it will still be just bottom right, you know? So if we always set the top left corner first, we wouldn't need that complicated of a math. Well, it's not that complicated, but it can be hard to wrap your head around. But say we specify the bottom right corner first, and then the top right, the top left, I mean. With that, to create the GUI properly, we always need to know the coordinates of the top left corner. And then we need to know the width and height of the GUI. So, how is that done? So this is the x value, this is also the x value. The difference between them is 400. So we take the second one minus 100, the first one, we get 400. But what if it was the other way around? Then 100 minus 500, we get negative 400. And that can't be used as width, because negative width doesn't make sense. So we make that an absolute value, and now it's 400 no matter where we started. Perfect. Now we got the width. Same idea comes with the y value. We can either subtract 400 from 200 or the other way around. Since we make it an absolute value, it will be what we want. Now, let me actually check. Yeah, that does indeed work, because I don't remember thinking that much about this kind of situation. I only thought about this. It still works. We'll get into why, for me to understand also. The way we get the top left corner is something that I'm going to show you right now. So the top left corner, the x and y coordinates, is what we end up using in the show method, where we show the GUI. And as you know, we have to specify the top left corner of the GUI. So if the second grab of coordinates is overall bigger than the first one, then we will consider top left to be the first grab, if not the second. Let's see that visually. So, for example, I take, first I grab top left, then bottom right. We check what is the bigger one. This is the bigger one. In this case, the first grab will be the top left corner. Let's do an opposite situation. What if I grab this first and then this? We understand that, oh, the first grab is bigger than the second grab. In this case, take the second one. I hope that's understandable enough, because I realize it can be difficult to wrap your head around, even while explaining it. This is the logic for width and height that I talked about. We subtract the second grab from the first one, make it an absolute value, so it doesn't really matter which is the subtractor and which is the subtractant. I have no idea if those are actually words or not, but I'm gonna use them. And then we round them, so it can actually be used in the show function with no errors. What is this? This is a wax solution that works surprisingly well. Remember how there's no title window? Well, the thing is, it still technically exists. It's just not seen. And when you create a GUI, it needs to be bigger than what you specify inside of it. So there is a margin that has to be kept. And the only reason why it actually stopped more or less at where I want, which can be configured, is because we actually removed that margin. Otherwise, it would be around this big. So we implement the width and height correctors that multiply what we got in terms of width and height and make it a bit smaller to get rid of that margin. Perfect. Now finally we create the GUI. It's always on top, has no caption, meaning no title bar. Remove the border. I don't think that's necessary. I just kind of threw it in there. And then plus till window. If you didn't know, it removes the hint, the icon. Yeah, the icon in the tray menu of this GUI. And it's not going to be in the Alt tab window either. Because I think it's unnecessary, considering that we can double click to close it, and it's always on top, so you're not going to lose it. Now, we said the most important thing, the back color, the background color that we got, or set in multiple ways. If we will run this function without setting the color first, no worries, it will be this color. And if you want a different color to be the default one, you can change it. Just use the hex value of a color. Otherwise, you might get an error whenever you run this function without setting a color first. Or instead of specifying it here, you can have something like hider OX 232323, for example. I have no idea what color that is, but here it is, running the function in your auto execute section. Now the default color is this. You have two solutions depending on what you like more. Okay, cool. Now this whole section is straight up a hack. It's simply a hack. What I wanted to do is to be able to move this GUI while clicking inside of it, and to be able to close it when I double click it. Thing is, you unfortunately can't have an on event of click or double click on the GUI itself. It has to be on a GUI control object. So for example, text, fuck, I'm fucked. I only use text, to be fair. And picture, which is actually what we're using. You might say, where's the picture? Well, it's hidden. We add a picture, and when you specify a width and height to a picture, it actually gets stretched into that width and height. Kinda strange, but it's useful, as I realized today when making this function. So yeah, it gets stretched. And what picture you get does not matter at all. I just took a random screenshot like this and saved it. The path, point to file, as I've shown multiple times on my channel, is my class where I track all of the paths that I use in my scripts. Gets far easier to manage than otherwise. And let's have a look at blank pick. You can't even recognize it. It's actually, oh, it's around here. I basically just took a screenshot of something along the lines of this, as I said, and here it is. Just save it as a file somewhere and use it. Now, I understand it might be not perfect to use a file in your functions. You usually would rather not, because that brings up, I guess, a dependency. So you could try using text instead. I tried. It was shit. It was not worth it. But you can try. Could be interesting to figure out the why. Why picture? So then, using this picture that is now stretched through the whole GUI, more or less, maybe, no, it's completely stretched, or so it seems. We do on events to that GUI control object. On event of clicking, actually we'll come back to it just after this. On event of double clicking, we pass the GUI control object, which is a parameter that on events double click automatically passes. I explained this in my function objects video. Yes, I explained that in my function objects video on my main channel. You should check it out. Then we take that GUI control object, get the parent GUI of it, and destroy it. The GUI property of a GUI control object is very nice. I started using it like, I don't know, 3 days ago. I used to have a far more whack system, and I think the current one is better. Now, on click, same thing, click and double click have the same exact auto passed parameters. And the reason why I'm using the asterisk is because the second parameter of click and double click is info, which for pictures and text has absolutely no meaning. And let's check it out in the docs. There's actually one more thing that I need to show you in the docs. So GUI object, we do add, we do picture. Hold on, I'm already lost. No. On events of double clicking, same as the click event. Okay, let's go to the click event. So for list view, tree view, link, and status bar, info does have a meaning of some sort. For all other controls, info currently has no meaning. But you still have to have it. And I'm not going to specify a parameter that I won't use. So this syntax makes sure it's understandable to the reader of my code that this is completely fucking useless. And the second thing that I wanted to show you, we go to GUI object, add, picture. It does actually matter what picture you use, but not that much, because there are several supported formats. GIF you can use, although I haven't tried it, and there is a way to make it move, like shown in this example, but you can use JPG and PNG. These are the two that you can for sure use, as well as the other here that are mentioned. However, I can't vouch for them. I haven't tried them. JPEG also works. I'm certain. Okay, that's all for that. So, what actually happens here? On click, we do the same thing, GUI control object, we get the parent GUI. What is this? This doesn't actually exist, but now does for me. You can actually add properties and methods to built-in objects. So what this actually is the prototype of a class. Here we got the prototype, and I added a method to prototypes of GUIs. Not to the GUI class itself, we don't need that, but to the GUI prototype and its press title bar. I'll explain what that actually does. Essentially, on click, we make the window think that we pressed the title bar, which doesn't exist. We make it think that we're actually holding down the title bar, and that's how we're moving it right now. And see how seamless it works. It's actually surprising, isn't it? I want to check if I'm recording. Hell yeah, I am. So there is a certain post message for exactly that. Here are the magic numbers. I don't know. They don't really mean anything. They're just numbers. So you just use those with post message and give it the win title of what we want to use. So we get the ID, the HK downscore ID, essentially, and pass it here as the win title. How do we get it? We pass the GUI object, which is, as you can notice, we actually did. So this is the GUI object, the parent GUI object. And since it's a method, it is automatically passed. Perfect. So to GUI, to the prototype of GUI, we define property. this is what is going to be called, and when we call that property, we call this function object, automatically passing a parameter. The parameter being this whole thing, the object part of a method call. We pass the GUI object to take the ID from it. This is just, I feel like, the better way to do it. GUI control object, GUI, and then a method on that makes more sense to me than just using post message and like this. So you could just make it a function and it would work the same exact way. I just like this more. So now, at least I hope, you understand what's happening here and how to do it. There's also the dark mode method that I made. As I said, all of my GUIs are dark mode. So essentially the console's font, this size, 20 by default, but can be changed, and this black background. Same thing goes for the coord getter and window getter. And something else. Oh, right, the relative coord getter. Anything else I have to show off? I don't remember. Yeah. And for that, instead of always specifying, oh, back color is this, or set font is this, I just use the dark mode method. And let's go to info to show off how I use it. That is so weird. Let's fix this. Cool. So we create the GUI and use the dark mode method. And I made it so it returns the GUI object that we operated on. I found it kinda annoying that the show method doesn't return the object. I actually am not sure what it even returns, but it returns a string for some odd reason. Maybe it's more useful than I think, but yeah, I decided to make it return the object. Cool. And now we have this stretched picture, right? Usually we would see it. So we make sure we don't. We set that picture to be almost exactly fully transparent to the window of this GUI control, which we get the ID from also. And now finally we show this GUI with the top left X, top left Y, the width, height, and not available, so it doesn't steal the focus. And I think it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't. VS Code is still the focused window. Epic. And now this is not the first call. Or rather, it's going to be the first call again. So the second time we run the function, this first section will be executed first again. This was an interesting project, and I hope I won't just completely forget about it. Although, I don't think I will, because how nice it is for my main channel videos to be able to just do this. I take a screenshot because I make my main channel videos with screenshots. I just hide some part of code that I wrote, and then to take the next screenshot, I do this, and here it is. Pretty nice. It's at least a very cool and interesting idea, whether or not it's going to be that useful for everyday life. But actually, we can make something that's even more useful, incredibly useful. Instead of just taking a color and making a GUI of that color, what if we took this whole thing, essentially a screenshot of this code, and got it just like that. What if we could take a screenshot and get this? Holy shit, right? Works in other windows too. And how to do that, I'll show you in my next video in 3 days. Wait for it. Bye bye.